Have you found yourself asking about what is design and what is design thinking? Some of the best way to understand design is just to dive in and experience it. Welcome to Introduction to Design Thinking with your host, Godfrey Kimani from Safaricom PLC. The agenda for today is this is the agenda for today. So we'll have an intro, a brief introduction about me, then we'll define what is design thinking, the design thinking process, the design thinking tools, and some of the key points from this session. A little bit about me. So my name is Godfrey Kimani. I am an interdisciplinary user experience designer with about 4 years of experience in design. Thus turning ideas into meaningful experience for brand and audience. I am an expert in UI, mobile design, web design, responsive design, marketing design, advertising, among other design principles. I apply user design methodologies to help teams write product requirements, to deliver research insight, user journeys, user journey maps, information architecture, wireframes for companies and startups. Currently, I am a senior user interface designer at Safaricom PLC. When I'm not working or when I'm not solving these problems, I play video games. I'm a big fan of travel. I read quotes, articles, take photographs. Yeah, I guess that's a little about me. Now, let's dive right into it. So, what actually is design thinking, and what is design thinking not, or what is it? What it is not. Design thinking is a user-centered approach to solving to problem solving. But basically, design thinking has been explained in different analogies from different peoples, depending on the needs that they want to solve. From design thinking also can also be defined as a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from designers' toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technologies, and the requirements of business success. This is a quote from Tim Brown, the executive chair of IT. Other than that, design thinking can be explained as an interactive process in which you seek to understand the user, challenge assumptions, define problems, and thus with an attempt to identify alternative strategies and solutions that might not be instantly apparent with the initial level of understanding, but solve these world problems. So where is design thinking integrated? So design integrates between the aspects of desirability, that is human behaviors and aspects, feasible, that is the technical and technological aspect, that is which technology, which platform are we going to use, and visibility, this is the business aspect. Design thinking is not a passing business of fad. It's an established part of how smart organizations work and operate in today's daily life. Some of the design-led organizations produce better results, and some of them is IBM or Kisco, Airbnb, among others companies. From small and large adoption, from small and large adoption, innovation, and design thinking practices. Actually, design thinking is less about thinking and more about doing. Often, design thinking is confused with visual design. Visual design, this is about how various elements look, but as it's stated by Steve Jobs, design thinking is not just how it looks and feels, but design is also is how it works. What are the design thinking processes? The key today is to think like a designer in the way you lead, explore, and create, create and innovate. Design thinking helps you to get clarity, find viable and feasible and desirable ideas. In more simple form, design thinking can result in building a series of conversation to draw the needs and the needs and actually becoming a solution. So design thinking so these are some of the design thinking processes or stages as outlined by IQ. So the first stage is emphasize, you define, you ideate, you prototype, and you test. These five stages of design thinking uh, help you to build prototypes and test the results to real users. It's also important to note that the design thinking process is not is a non-linear process. Thus, you can follow a linear path. That is, you can go from emphasis. You can begin from emphasize. You define the problem. You ideate some of the solutions. You prototype. But it also means that you can still go back to the first step. Emphasize. You can define until again on the same stage of define. You can still go back to emphasize. So let's look at these stages much deeper. So emphasize, this is just getting a deep understanding of the problem and the realities of the people that you're designing for. So the first thing you do is observe. So this is actually looking at the user's behavior and finding solution in the context of their daily lives. You engage with people in a conversation and interview and ask the 5 whys. That is why, when, what, and where. In math, ask someone to complete a task and tell you what they're doing. The second stage is define. The process, and this is a process where you synthesize the findings in order to form a user point of view that you can address. Here you tend to focus on the user, that is, deploy an understanding of the type of the person that you're designing for. You identify some of the needs. You select them based on their pinpoints, and then you find a fulfillment in them. The insights. This is expressing the insights. Express the insights you develop and define some of the principles. Ideate. This is basically focusing on the idea and generating more ideas and translating the problems into solutions. The goal of this is to ideate. The goal of this is to ideate and explore a wider solutions for the problem or a product. The other step is prototype. This is the most or the most favorable. This is a simple and cheap way that you can shape your ideas into real experience and then have a chance to interact with users. In the early stages, we keep the prototypes inexpensive and of low resolutions to learn quickly and explore possibilities. The test stage. This is where you gain feedback, from the prototypes, iterate and learn more about the user, refine some of the problem so that you can have at least a more working prototype that will help them solve some of the pain points or the initial problem of the user. At this stage, you create experiences and you let people interact with some of the experiences. so that you can gain a deeper understanding of the user and also identify some of the pain points, what they like about the product, where can you improve, and all that. Okay, so let's have a short activity. First of all, you might need to prepare up with the person, at least one or two, and then let's look at a real life issue or a real life problem. So for about 5 minutes, describe the ideal wallet of your partner. This can be done by exchanging the two wallets, and then I feel this one I'm talking about a physical wallet, basically the one that people use to store their money, their ATM cards, and all that. Identify some of the pain points and what they don't like about their wallet. So maybe if the wallet is too big, how does it feel? How does it look? And all that. Describe what they don't like about the wallet. And for 5 minutes, then ideate and make a new sketch of a wallet that you think your partner would appreciate to use. How do you apply design thinking? Design thinking can be highly supportive to communities finding new meanings, both product and new usage of services. It can help answer why a customer will buy or why they will change their behavior during the buying cycle or while interacting with your product. It can clarify and make sense of things. It can be that catalyst that brings insight and concepts together. Or why should a customer use this product and what are the benefits of the use this product or a service. So design thinking is basically an approach of it's an approach for creative problem solving that is inspired by the way designers think or inspired by the way users think or inspired by what are you really solving. Design thinking comprises of mindset modes. Here we look at some of the modes that inspire design. So the first mode or mindset in design thinking process is empathy. So empathy, this is key in trying to come up with a design thinking mindset, because at this stage or at this step you only focus on the user. You focus on the user and you identify what the user is going through. Basically, this can be described as cognitive empathy. This is basically stepping into the shoes of the user and finding what is actually their pain point, what they would like to experience in a product. Optimism. So this is actually having that drive to solve a particular problem for a particular user or for a group of users, or finding a solution for a particular problem. Embrace ambiguity. This is actually where you say that a particular mindset or at a particular point, during the problem solving cycle, you may have different users with different needs. So you have to explore the ambiguity and try to come up into a point of a level where you can solve some of this. So you can be able to solve some of these solutions on the problem of a particular user. The other mindset is make it. So this is basically going out of your way, finding different ideas, exploring different scenarios so that you can actually come to solve a particular problem. Learn from failure. This is another mindset that allows you to actually focus on the user. So by learning from the failures, this is basically looking at some of the things that you've come up with, and from this you learn from different areas of what didn't go well and what is working. So you can embrace your failure and still go back and try and solve uh, a design problem for a particular solution. The other thing is iterate, and reiterate. This is basically going back to the original idea, looking at the pain points, looking at the success stories, and iterating up to a point where you find a better solution for a particular user. Creative confidence is another design thinking mindset. How does design feels at the initial stages? So design during the design thinking process at the first stage, the ideas or the solution that you're trying to solve might not be clear. Thus, may be uncertain, may pick different patterns and may pick different insights. And this is the phase that we call the research phase. So where you come talk to users, do different research, like maybe brainstorm, have questionnaires, create user journey maps, create empathy maps. With the aim of finding the real problem of a user. During the two stages of design thinking process, the idea becomes a bit clarity and it takes a shape to a point where you have an initial design or an initial prototype that the users can interact with. Some of the design thinking tools, these are some of the design thinking tools, these are design thinking canvas. So the design thinking canvas helps you visualize the design thinking process. It also helps you develop questions. You can be able to write different questions, and then the users can come in and fill questions of how they feel, what they think, and all that. It's also good because it documents the process from the initial stage to the last stage. Creating customer journey maps. Customer journey maps are just a visual representation of the customer journey, also called the buyer journey or the user journey. So this is basically identifying from the first stage to the last stage, finding the cycle or the path that the customer will use during during a stage of during at the point where they're interacting with a product or a service. This can be maybe what is the journey from the point where they come in. This could be a good example because this is, for example, a grocery store. So what are some of the customer journeys that they experience from the point where they enter? Maybe it's a grocery shop, how they are served, how do they interact with the seller, to a point where they get to buy the product and leave the shop, and what are some of the things that the seller will talk to the customer. So basically, this allows your customer to experience a smooth onboarding process, to benchmark the customer experience desires, what they like and what they don't like about the journey. Also creating a logical order of our buyer's journey. Other design tool is empathy maps. So empathy map is a collaborative visual used to articulate what we know or about our property, what we know about a particular user. Better understanding of your user. This one helps you to better understand your users and your users and their desires. A visual representation of various feelings. That is, what do the customer feel, what do they say, what do they think, and all that. It helps make it helps in making decision on the product development cycle. User interviews. So this is basically one of the best uh, tools in design thinking, because here you get some of the conversation here that is that they're not biased. You get feel and know you get to feel and see what the customer or what the user thinks about your product or your services. It basically helps you to better understand why users choose a particular product or a service. It basically provides greater empathy within your company or within a service. It also expands the user pool, because here you will get to get both qualitative and quantitative data from the user. Other design thinking tools are personas, creating affinity diagrams, prototyping, storyboarding, among other design thinking tools. Basically, people adopt new technologies to discover new solutions, develop different extra in line with how they feel about a product or how they feel about a service. Okay, what are some of the advantages of design thinking? So design thinking helps you innovate. It also helps you increase the customer satisfaction and retention. This is basically by finding what do they like about your product and what do they say about your product or your service, and how you're going to improve a particular service or a particular product. It enables you to continually expand your knowledge. This is knowledge about your users, your competitors, and also the product itself. It encourages innovative thinking, and creating problem solving techniques. Yes. So, what are some of the key takeaways to remember during the design thinking process? Is that design thinking is a user-centered approach to solving the problem solving, and empathy is key. Design thinking is also a step-by-step process that is repeated over multiple iterations. This is with the name finding a better. This is with the name of finding a better on improving your product a product or also a product or a service to your customers. Design thinking is about doing. So let's start doing. Also, design thinking, the five stages of design thinking guide the entire design process. The last thing to note is why you're talking about or why you're thinking about design thinking. It is important to consider and to look at people first, or to think about the people first, because these are basically people who are going to use your service. So design thinking is all about designing for people. Some of the biography here you can have different. Here we will have to see different articles that talks about design thinking. Some of the design thinking workshops that also can help you improve uh, your your career in the design thinking field. Thank you. This is the last slide. Thank you.